like that. So, a couple of characters, Mephibosheth and King David. It's a story of this Mephibosheth guy. He's a lost soul, broken, physically crippled. He's been given a chance at new life by this king, by King David. It's a story of a promise, a covenant that's been fulfilled. And it's really a great picture of grace, of unmerited favor. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ today, guess what? It's your story. Story about you. Story about how God reached out and touched you, undeserving, unmerited. If you don't know Jesus yet, today, He wants to make it your story as well. And by God's grace, I pray that He will. Now, this is Calvary Chapel. We don't typically just jump right in without giving you a little context, a little background. So, quickly, let me bring you up to where we are in 2 Samuel here. All the way back to the beginning of 1 Samuel, the namesake of the two books, 1 and 2 Samuel. Right around chapter 8 or so, Samuel had become the leader of Israel, a judge. At that time, there was no real central government in Israel, just a bunch of loose affiliated families and tribes. And Samuel had become the leader, been a great leader. He was getting up in years, up in age, and typically that would be passed on to the sons of the judge. Samuel's sons, unfortunately, they weren't turning out so good. They were kind of weak. So the people started looking at that, and they took their eyes off of God being in control, and they started looking around at the nations around them. They said, we want to be like other nations. We want a king to lead us, because frankly, we're not liking the options that we're seeing here. So with their eyes, they took a look rather than trusting God. And God said, you know what, Samuel, give them what they want. Give them a king. So a king was selected. This guy they selected, tall, good-looking guy, strapping. And they looked at it and said, now that's a king. Now this guy's name was Saul, King Saul, right? Anybody here a fan of Beverly Hillbillies back in the day? Remember that? Reruns? Mental picture. Again, I'm a picture guy. Think of Jethro Bodine. Remember Jethro? Saul was kind of like Jethro and a little bit psychotic. Okay? That's how I think of King Saul. So Saul, he's a picture of the nation of Israel, because he looks good on the outside, but inside he's weak. He's corrupt. And God allowed them to have that king to show them what they were like. So after some time had gone by, a lot of serious blunders, God said, enough of this guy. I'm going to select a man after my own heart. He sends Samuel out to this family, Jesse, a sheep herder, goes through all of his sons, and you guys know the story. He selects his youngest son, David, anoints him, raises him up. Over time, God blesses David, raises him up in the eyes of the people, places him in the inner circle of Saul. He becomes a national hero, a war hero, a leader of men. People are drawn to him. Saul starts looking at this. Initially, he admired him. He liked David, a lot of affection. But then, that jealousy starts to grow in Saul's heart and becomes hatred. It turns into such intense hatred that he spends the rest of his days trying to eliminate David, trying to eliminate God's chosen one, fighting against God. He makes a lot of attempts. Eventually, David is forced to go on the land. For 20 years, roughly, David is running around in the wilderness, and Saul's chasing him around, trying to kill him. It's a great story. Check it out if you have the time. 2 Samuel, or 1 and 2 Samuel. Now, an interesting side story develops. Saul has a bunch of sons. His oldest son is the heir apparent. He's going to be the next king. Saul wants to establish his line. This guy's name is Jonathan. He's another one of our characters today. Now, Jonathan and David, they kind of grow up together. They're growing up as best friends. Young men, they come up together and they get really close, tight bond. Closer than brothers, the scripture says. Now, as Jonathan is torn between honoring his father and his friend David, and he's seeing his father actually trying to kill David, he's torn. But his loyalty is to his father. So right at the end, when David is about to go on the lam, Jonathan and David, they come together, and Jonathan says, hey, I see that the Lord has anointed you and blessed you. I know it's not in my future to be the king. I know that someday you're going to be there. When that happens, I want you to promise me, remember my family, remember me. And he makes David promise. He goes, yeah, I remember. He says, I want you to promise. And David said, I'll remember. I'll remember. Very important part of the story. At the end of 2 Samuel, Saul and Jonathan, they're killed in battle by the Philistines. That clears the way. David assumes the throne, unites the country, starts subduing the enemies around him. Peace is beginning to reign. And that brings us to where we are right now in 2 Samuel chapter 9. One interesting note that takes place. When Saul and Jonathan are killed in battle, a lot of chaos goes on. His remaining family, they flee because there's nobody in control. And everybody knows there's this great battle going on between David and Saul. So this one of Jonathan's young son is taken out by his nurse. When many of the family members are killed in battle, he's taken out into hiding. And his nurse actually drops him. This young guy's name is Mephibosheth. Drops him on the way out and cripples him. Probably somehow a bad break where it lames his legs. Maybe he's paralyzed from the waist down. But he becomes a cripple, this young guy Mephibosheth. It's just a little vignette, a little verse over in 2 Samuel chapter 4, verse 4. Is where that is noted. This guy Mephibosheth we're going to read about here, his name means a lot. You know, Jewish names mean a lot. His name actually means one who scatters shame. Can you imagine having that name? One who scatters shame. The root word means contemptible, a laughing stock. Mephibosheth, that's his name, that's his character. Shameful. He's weak and crippled. And it's an interesting note, not because of anything he did, right? Mephibosheth was just a young guy. He was crippled through no action of his own. That's what happened to him. So, with that, let's look at 2 Samuel chapter 9. Starting with verse 1. I'm sorry for that long introduction, but it's important to understand the context here, I think. Now David said, "Is there still anyone who is left in the house of Saul that I might show him kindness for Jonathan's sake?" Now I'm going to go through the passage here. I'm going to pick out 8 things about grace. Okay? If you're a note taker, you might want to take these down. The first one is right here in verse 1. Characteristics about grace. The first thing is grace is not picky. God's grace is not picky. David in this story, he's a picture of God. Okay? Mephibosheth is a picture of all of us before we come to Christ. So David, as a picture of God here, he could have said, "Is there anyone who's worthy? Is there anyone worthy at all?" But no, he doesn't. He says, "Is there anyone?" In John 3:16, this is a passage many of you are probably familiar with. "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever," right? "Whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life." You see, God is holding out his unmerited favor for anyone. His offer of grace is available for everyone that's out there. So grace is not picky. God is holding out his hand for that favor for all of us to receive it. Let's continue on, verse 2 through 4. "And there was a servant of the house of Saul whose name was Ziba. And when they had called him to David, the king said to him, 'Are you Ziba?' And he said, 'At your service.' And then the king said, 'Is there not still anyone of the house of Saul to whom I may show the kindness of God?' And Ziba said to the king, 'There is still a son of Jonathan, who is lame in his feet.' So the king said to him, 'Where is he?' And Ziba said to the king, 'Indeed, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Amiel, in Lo-debar.'" So, interesting place where Mephibosheth is. He's now been taken into hiding. Since he was a young man, he's been in hiding in this place called Lo-debar. Lo-debar literally means a barren place, an empty place, hopelessness. And that's where he's living, in this place. Now think about Mephibosheth. Put yourself in his shoes. When he, as a young man, he's taken away. He's of the line of Saul. Now there's a new king on the throne. David. Completely different line. In this culture, what happens to all the members of the previous line once a new king comes on? In this culture, they all get executed, taken out. You don't want any attempts on the throne, a challenge to your reign. So this whole time as he's growing up, Mephibosheth's living in this place, Lo-debar. He's probably been indoctrinated growing up with a lot of different thoughts. Maybe it was, you're crippled. You're worthless. You have no value. You're no good. Perhaps that's what he was indoctrinated with. Or maybe it was fear in his heart. Maybe it was, if you're ever found out alive, King David and his guys, they'll kill you. They'll execute you on the spot. And he's told that his whole